Imagine a language so powerful it once commanded an empire, yet vanished almost without a trace. What if I told you that we could still hear its whispers today? Join me as we embark on an auditory journey back to ancient Carthage, piecing together the lost echoes of a forgotten tongue. Welcome back to Whispers of Lost World. I'm your name, and in today's episode, we explore a mystery unlike any other, the lost language of Carthage. Carthage is remembered for its wealth, its warships, and of course, its bitter rivalry with Rome. But hidden beneath the ruins of this once great empire lies something even more haunting, a language that once carried the voices of queens, merchants, warriors, and priests. This was the Punic language born from the Phoenician world, carried across the seas, and spoken in one of the greatest trading empires the ancient world ever knew. Today, Punic is gone. Or is it? Fragments survive in inscriptions and names, in borrowed words that slipped into other languages, and in faint echoes that still whisper through history. Carthage was not just a city, it was an empire of the seas. Founded by Phoenician settlers around the 9th century BCE, it grew into a sprawling maritime power that dominated trade routes and rivaled Rome itself. Its merchants sailed as far as Britain, its generals shook the foundations of Italy, and its wealth dazzled the Mediterranean. But when Rome destroyed Carthage in 146 BCE, it did more than burn temples and enslave citizens, it silenced a voice. The language of Carthage, Punic, slowly faded from the world. To understand what Punic was, we must travel even further back to the shores of the Levant. The Phoenicians, a seafaring people from modern-day Lebanon and Syria, created a language and a script that would shape civilizations. Their greatest gift to humanity was the alphabet, the ancestor of Greek, Latin, and even the letters you're reading right now. When Phoenicians settled in North Africa, they brought this script and their language with them. Over time, it evolved into a distinctive dialect, Punic. It became the lifeblood of Carthage. It was the language of the marketplace, of treaties with Rome, of worship to Baal Hamon and Tanit. It was spoken in homes, whispered in political councils, and shouted in battle. But after Carthage fell, Latin began to dominate. Slowly, Punic was pushed aside until it all but vanished. The question remains, what happened to the language that built a maritime superpower? The fascinating thing about Punic is that it didn't disappear instantly. In fact, it survived for centuries after Rome destroyed Carthage. Roman writers complained that Punic was still widely spoken in North Africa. Augustine of Hippo, a North African bishop and philosopher writing in the 4th century CE, admitted that many people around him still spoke Punic fluently. This tells us something incredible. Punic lasted nearly 1,000 years after Carthage was founded. Imagine that. A language born on the shores of the Levant, thriving in Africa, surviving Rome's fury, and still echoing centuries later. But where do we find those echoes today? They survive in inscriptions carved on steles, in the names of gods and people, in borrowed words that slipped into Latin, Berber, and even Arabic. Words like Rab, meaning chief or leader, survive faintly in later tongues. Place names in Tunisia and Algeria still hint at Punic roots. Some scholars even believe that modern Maltese, spoken on the islands south of Sicily, carries faint echoes of Punic structure. Picture an archaeologist brushing away the sand from an ancient Punic inscription. The stone is cracked, the letters faded, but the shapes of the Phoenician alphabet still gleam faintly in the sunlight. Each symbol is a whisper, a merchant's contract, a prayer to Tanit, a soldier's vow frozen in time waiting to be heard again. So what did Punic sound like? We cannot know for certain, but through comparison with Phoenician and Hebrew, linguists have reconstructed pieces. Punic was a Semitic language belonging to the same family as Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic. Its words were built from 3-letter roots. For example, the root MLK could mean king, reign, or rule, depending on how it was pronounced. This system gave the language a kind of poetic flexibility, where meaning shifted with context. The script was equally fascinating. Like Phoenician, it was written without vowels, using only consonants. To read Punic, one needed to already know the word being represented. For outsiders, this would have been cryptic. For Carthaginians, it was second nature. We know this not just from inscriptions, but from the occasional transcriptions in Greek and Latin. For example, the Carthaginian general Hannibal's name is recorded in Latin, But in Punic, it would have been Waniba El, meaning the grace of Baal, even his father, Hamilcar. Barca carried a name steeped in Punic, Hamilcar meaning brother of Melkart, a Phoenician god, Car meaning lightning. Every Carthaginian name was a prayer, a connection to the divine. Imagine hearing Hannibal's name not in Latin, but in its original Punic tongue, deep, resonant, invoking the gods of Carthage. It wasn't just a name, it was a statement of identity, faith, and power. So how did Punic die? Short answer is, slowly. After the fall of Carthage, Punic continued in North Africa, coexisting with Latin. For a while, Punic inscriptions even continued alongside Roman ones. But Latin was the language of power, law, and administration. Over generations, Latin spread, Punic retreated, and eventually, it slipped away. By the time of Augustine, Punic was already becoming a rural tongue, spoken in villages, but not in cities. With the coming of Christianity, Latin dominated even more strongly, especially in the church. By the 6th or 7th century CE, Punic was likely extinct. And yet, even as it died, Punic left shadows. In the writings of Roman historians, in Augustine's Confessions, in names carved into stone, we hear faint echoes. Today, linguists compare Punic inscriptions with Phoenician and Hebrew, reconstructing fragments of grammar and vocabulary. It's like piecing together a song from broken notes. What makes the story of Punic so powerful is that it reminds us how fragile languages are. A language can carry the weight of an empire, command fleets, inspire generals, and shape religion. Yet in the end, it can vanish, leaving behind only whispers. And yet, Punic has a strange kind of immortality. The Phoenician alphabet it carried became the foundation for Greek, which in turn gave rise to Latin, which shaped the scripts of Europe. In a sense, every time we write a word in the Latin alphabet, we are tracing lines back to the Punic world. Even Hannibal's story, his battles, his genius lives on in the words we still use. Military academies study his strategies, historians debate his choices, and in those debates, Punic still breathes. Imagine standing on the ruins of Carthage at dusk. The Mediterranean wind carries whispers across the stones. You cannot hear the words, but you know they are there. Fragments of a language once shouted by merchants, prayed by priests, and whispered by lovers. A voice lost, but never entirely silenced. Today we explored the lost language of Carthage. We learned how Punic was born from Phoenician roots, how it shaped the great maritime empire of Carthage, and how it endured even after Rome's conquest. We glimpsed its structure, its beauty, and its echoes that still survive in inscriptions and place names. And we reflected on its silence, a reminder of how even mighty languages can vanish, leaving only whispers. If you enjoyed this journey into the forgotten tongue of Carthage, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to Whispers of Lost World, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, do you think we can ever truly revive the lost languages of history, or are some voices gone forever? Until next time, keep listening to the whispers of history, because the past is never truly silent.